Hi AP World History students. So let's get caught up. There's a couple big ideas from Periodization 5 that have happened at the end of lessons. We didn't quite get to them. Let's cover them now and make sure that you're feeling good to go on these. First big idea, and this is from lesson 5.2. First big idea is nationalism. This is another one of these ideas that has become so ingrained and so common for us that it's like describing oxygen. You're just sort of so used to it that it's hard to imagine that it wasn't the case. But if we're going to contrast this, nationalism arises because of the idea of a nation state. And like you can see, a nation state is a community at a state level. So this is not something tight and local, but this is a state where the people of the state are united by common bonds. The people see themselves identified by a common ethnicity and sometimes but mostly a common language, and sometimes but mostly a common religious identity and cultural heritage. Again, that probably just sounds like a state to you, but if we sort of contrast it with what we had before, which were kingdoms, right? And a kingdom is whatever part of a map or whatever territory that a particular monarch happens to control at that point, and the nobility therein. But there might be many different ethnic groups there. It's not really part of the definition. It's just how much does that king manage to control, or there might be many different religious ideas there. As a matter of fact, in many places, like England under the Normans, the king spoke a different language than everyone else did because the Normans were French coming to England. What this is creating here around the time of these Atlantic revolutions is a common unifying identity, and that power of a common unifying identity that is not just something where kings can say, I'm more powerful because I can control the nobility, but we have a power because everybody's plugging into this identity, everybody is pitching into this, everybody wants the good and the glory of this nation and this sort of common shared identity. That creates a real potent power that's going to unleash itself in the 19th century and then really in the 20th century in some kind of ugly ways. The Enlightenment period says that rights are something that the state owes to us, or the state must protect. What we are owed from the state is protection of our rights. What we owe to the state, nationalism says, what we owe to the state is our duty. What we owe to the state is our commitment and our loyalty. Those are things that we must give to the state. My stupid cat is scratching on the sunroom door right now, so if you can hear that, just ignore her. I always do. It works great. Nationalism, like I know, at best, nationalism feels like patriotism. Patriotism is great. I love watching the Olympics, and our team comes in, the American athletes walk into the Olympic stadium, and I feel my heart swell, or watching the anthem played, or even moments of patriotic pride or the national anthem. Those are great things. I frankly love the identity that I have in being an American. That's a good thing. You take nationalism and you crank it way up. You take patriotism and you crank it up to 11, and you can start to create this hostility that comes from the other in our midst. We are the nation, but there are people in our midst who are not of the nation, right? Religious minorities or ethnic minorities who are not us, and we otherize people in our midst, or we otherize another nation, right? Like France says, these Germans are the problem. Leaders recognizing the power and the potency of this idea fostered nationalism. This is where flags, like national flags, the flags that we recognize today, these national flags are designed in this period, the early 19th century. National anthems are being written. Now we watched the Marseillaise and with the lyrics, which is just so amazingly there is an other in that, right? And not only do we fear the other, we will take the other's impure blood and water our fields with it, right? I mean, it really goes there. When I think about nationalism, I think of a great scene in the film Casablanca, which is a terrific movie set in World War II in French North Africa. But France has been conquered by Germany, and so it's under the control of the Germans. And there's a scene at Rick's Cafe, sort of a bar, and at night these proud French nationalists strike up the Marseillaise, and they sing it, even in the presence of some German soldiers. And they're just sort of saying, yeah, and they're feeling this nationalistic pride in a way that they can express, like sort of a spontaneous singing of their national anthem, and then the Germans shut it down right after that. Not everybody liked nationalism, though, in Europe. In particular, when they're trying to close after Napoleon and after the Napoleonic Wars and after all the chaos that had gotten unleashed by the French Revolution, we have this Congress of Vienna, which is sort of like a Congress. The Congress of Vienna, their subtitle should be like putting the toothpaste back in the tube, right? Or putting the cat back in the bag somehow. They are the old monarchical class, or it's a reactionary movement of like the old guard trying to put away these Enlightenment ideas and trying to tamper down on nationalism, especially because in many places, like Austria-Hungary or Austrian Empire under the Habsburgs, nationalism is a problem because there's many, many, many different ethnic minorities within the Austrian Empire. And we don't want like nationalism spreading to them and them all feeling this about themselves and then thus resenting the Habsburgs. And so there's many at this period who then start feeling like nationalism is bad. Nationalism plays a big part. Nationalism plays an important role in the unification of Germany and Italy, but Germany's the big one because that's really what's going to drive a lot of geopolitics here. In the 1860s, right up to 1870, when we finally go from all those mixed up German principalities to now the true state of Germany, or the First Reich as it was called. And that's something where feelings of German nationalism really came to the fore and crystallized there as part of that movement led by Otto von Bismarck. Now, from lesson 5.5, we have socialism and Karl Marx. I started to get into this, and then we realized this is going to be a bad idea to try and teach in 90 seconds. So Marx is observing in Great Britain, where he's doing much of his writing. He did not find friendly haven in Germany. He is operating in Great Britain under his the person who's sort of taking care of him and paying for him, Friedrich Engels, his patron. And Engels is a philosopher himself. Anyway, Marx is watching he's watching Great Britain industrialize, which is the first place to industrialize, and it's sort of, in many ways, kind of the most grotesque of the industrializations, where there is absolutely zero effort for any government intervention to mitigate like the worst of the rise of industry. And Marx is watching this firsthand and is appalled. And he isn't appalled because he says, this is like kind of unfair, it could be better, we should moderate this. Marx is seeing this and saying, what is happening is workers are being alienated from their very selves. And you probably saw this in that 8-bit philosophy video, but if you think about it, what is it that makes us human, Marx says? Marx says what makes us human is our labor. What makes us human is me applying my formidable intellect and my creativity to sort of bring into existence things that did not exist before. So in this case, it's like this makeup lesson, right? Or any PowerPoint presentation that I do, or anything I do as a teacher. I sort of wrangle into existence things that did not exist before, and I put my labor into this. And he says his identification of people is not Homo sapiens, but Homo faber, and that means man the maker. And we make, right? We create and we make, and our labor is what makes us human. Like what we bring into existence and then we have and we say, this is ours and I cultivated it from beginning to end and this is me, right? And so when I say, who are you, AP World History student? You shouldn't say, I'm a daughter or I'm a son or I'm a Christian or I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. You should say, I am what I make. I am my labor. I am a student and someday I will be someone who creates or produces X, whatever that is. But what capitalism does, especially the factory system, it takes all these human beings, turns them into cogs into machines, and separates out that human essence from them. And it doesn't allow them to make. And it doesn't allow them to produce out of their own brain and with their own hands. And instead, they become part of a much, much bigger machine and they just become one little piece of it. And so it goes beyond capitalism is unfair, but if we have like a minimum wage and labor unions, it would be all right. No. This whole system where people are exploited, their very humanity is exploited, and we alienate people from themselves, and then we trick them because we say, yes, I'm going to alienate you from yourselves, but I'm going to give you this thing called a paycheck. You're going to sell your soul to the devil, so to speak, for this thing called money, and then you can go buy neat stuff. But people are deceived, and almost like, cattle going to their execution, they go, well, I need a paycheck, I need to pay the mortgage, I need money to buy stuff at Target. But Marx is saying, no, you don't. What you need is labor. What you need is to be human. And so Marx is railing against the very foundations of the system, and what he saw as it's just manifest unfairness, where there are people, the bourgeois class, who are absolutely profiting off of the alienation and exploitation of the proletariat class, who are just sort of like walking like animals to the slaughter. Religion might be of interest to us at Southwest. Religion is the opiate of the masses. Religion is our drug. Religion isn't the problem, but religion numbs us. Religion says, don't worry about this life, right? Don't worry about this life. Worry about the next life. Worry about reincarnation. Worry about the state of your immortal soul. Worry about where are you at with Jesus Christ. Worry about going to church, right? Religion tells us not to worry about this world, not to worry about material things. Marx is a materialist, which doesn't mean he's like a material girl or something like that, like Madonna. It just means Marx says, this world is all there is. This world is driven by material things, the material things of who owns factories, who owns railroads. That's what drives everything. Stop this otherworldly focus, because this otherworldly focus just makes for all this unfairness to get worse and worse and worse here. And so Marx says, look, when you follow the stages of history from hunter-gatherer to Neolithic, from pastoral to agrarian, from agrarian to feudal, from feudal to industrial, none of these things passes easily. There's always like peasant revolts. There's always warfare that accompanies these transitions between stages of history. Now, even in the 19th century, we see political revolutions. And so Marx says, we need a revolution. This system is going to topple. It is hollow at its center, says Marx. It's utterly corrupt. It's absolutely exploitative. And so he says we need a violent overthrow of this capitalist society to move us to the next stage. What is the next stage? The next stage is going to be socialism. He doesn't want moderate or small or incremental reform like Burke might have talked about. He says it's time to throw this entire thing out and move to socialism. Socialism is a system in which we build a society that's designed to benefit everyone, not just an elite few, where we get away from John Locke's emphasis on heavy protection of property rights, and instead redistribute, take these things, these means of production, these means of distribution, again, banks, railroads, factories, stores, and the people need to seize them from the few, right? And like this chart that you see here, this pyramid of the capitalist system, all these people who are under the heavy weight of everyone else need to throw it off violently. he's saying. This is not by playing patty cake or asking politely. This needs to happen through violence. And we will throw it off, and we will seize those things ourselves, the people, and we would destroy capitalism. We would destroy the way that the elite maintain their power. And he says, once we do that, what we'll find is we have a society that is much less competitive, that's much less exploitative, that where all these sort of evils or the evils of human nature will go away because capitalism has gone away. And capitalism is what's just like fanning the flames of all the evil, nasty, selfish things in human nature, Marx says. And so a lot of socialist, rabble-rouse. Now, Marx eventually gets into the final stage of history, even beyond socialism, will be communism, right? Socialism will require what he calls the dictatorship of the proletariat. Now, that should sound like concerning to you, and it always sounds concerning to me, but like the people, there'll be a temporary dictatorship to like redistribute and make everything right. And then once we've achieved a state of fairness and equality, that dictatorship of the proletariat will evaporate. Okay, that's Marx's take on what's going to happen here. And we will achieve the final stage in history where, I don't remember the exact quote, but Marx basically says man can go fishing in the morning and do poetry in the afternoon and produce in the evening, and he will in the end produce according to his ability to produce and take according to his need, and you won't have to work 12 hours a day in a factory selling your human soul for a paycheck in order to pay for your mortgage. And these socialist rabble-rousers who saw themselves as operating on behalf of that oppressed proletariat class, most of the socialist rabble-rousers were not as ideological or as utopian as Marx. Most of them are saying, well, we want to use labor unions to mitigate some of the unfairness here, or we want to use the power of government to balance out businesses. But some were just saying, we want revolution, or this will only be done through throwing bombs, literally. And I think that, to me, this raises this interesting question that I'm going to just pose to you to think about. You can turn to someone around you, but consider it for yourself. How much faith should I put, how much hope should I put in our ability as humans to make this world fair, to make this world right? What's your call for that? What are you called to do as an individual? What are you called to do? What are we called to do as a government? Like, to what degree should that be our goal? To what degree is it appropriate to make a fair and utterly equitable or equal world like Marx was looking at? Anyway, I hope that this gives you a better passing understanding of some of the origins of socialism and some of what Marx was getting at. We will talk more about it as a class, and I hope this helps with nationalism as well. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening wherever you are. God bless you.